Hello, everyone. Hi, how are you doing? Good, good. Hopefully a little bit drier than I am. The rain is, it's a nice touch to Boston. So, but yeah, welcome to Bridging the Gender Gap. Obviously, if you're here, you probably know what we're going to be chatting about today. But just to kind of go back over our focus, this is a panel dedicated to sharing insight from leaders in gaming, esports, content creation, even acting and anime, about their journeys and how they're building bridges for other people and helping them, essentially lead a path for others along the way. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Kayla. My pronouns are she, they. I am the project manager and community manager for 1000 Dreams Fund. It is a 501c3 nonprofit that helps provide resources, mentorship, funding to women and femmes in a variety of fields to help them get access to their dreams at the end of the day. So I think that's something that's near and dear probably to many of us on this panel. But I'd like to pass it over to Camilla to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Ooh, I am much louder today. Hi, everyone. My name's camillapanda. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a content creator. I do esports casting, and I also dabble a lot in cosplay. That's pretty much all I do at this point. Oh, wow, I have a very short intro.
Do you want to tell us a little bit of how you got here?
Sure. So for 10 years now, oh my God, I feel old. I've been a robotics caster, so I would travel the country and I would do the casting, play-by-play and everything for high school robotics competitions as a volunteer. During the pandemic, I ended up falling into Twitch streaming because I was really bored at home for those weeks. And I figured if I'm playing video games, I can raise money for charity and help kids. So I started with St. Jude Play Live, ended up hitting Twitch affiliate, and then going, I'm okay at this. I guess I should just see what happens. And now streaming is my full-time thing. I do esports casting. I've made that transition over to being able to cast for different events. And it's a lot of fun. It's great.
Thanks, Camilla. And then we'll go to Rachel, and then we'll go down the line from here. So feel free to introduce yourselves.
All right. Hi, guys. My name is Rachel. Currently, I am an operations coordinator at Riot Games, specifically supporting the Valorant dev team. And I guess little backstory of how I got here. In college, I was involved in my collegiate esports community, and then decided that I wanted to go work in gaming. So I've had a bunch of internships and experience doing HR, marketing, events, stuff like that at a bunch of different companies.
Is this thing on? Okay. Hey, everybody. My name is Lauren. I go by Toasty Marshmallow online. It's kind of embarrassing to tell people sometimes. But anyway, I started out as an actor. I'm still an actor, but I went to college for musical theater. So I'm a theater kid, anime kid, double whammy. And so now I kind of transitioned using some of my skills into streaming, content creation, hosting for different nerdy companies. And I also make some travel content. So that's kind of what I do. And content creation is kind of my full-time thing. And then acting is my side thing because I picked two very unstable careers.
Hello, my name is Vian. Speaking of unstable careers, I'm a game designer. Formerly at Filament Games, I was a learning games designer, was part of the 1 out of 80K layoffs, heyo. Previously at Harmonix, previously Epic, and I am just really excited to be here and talk about games and things.
Yeah, and thank you, everybody. And I just want to remind everybody, here or watching, all of us here, our opinions do not reflect, the companies that we're currently at. So please keep that in mind as we kind of continue through today's panel. So, what is the gender gap and why esports, gaming, and content creation? So I kind of want to lead with a question here. And please feel free, if you're comfortable, to raise your hand. How many people have either been on the other side or received a mistreatment based off of gender? Maybe it's a gender-based bias or harassment in-game, in the gaming space, or what have you. Please feel free. Yeah. Exactly as I thought. Every hand that we see here is one too many. I'll be honest. I think there are some wonderful organizations and work that's being done to try to end that, but clearly there's still room for that. So, as I said, I think everyone here has probably known somebody who's received backlash or gender-based harassment, but it goes a little bit deeper than that. So there's also the pay gap. Many women, for example, have a huge chunk of their payment, basically 18% lower than their male counterparts, or even when it comes to access to resources, or in-game, even if you're trying to be a content creator like Camila, streaming, Valorant or what have you, another title, you likely will run into somebody who might not be so friendly online. But I'd like to kind of get a little bit of information from our panelists about the bias and kind of their insight on what that means to them. So I'd like to start with our first question, if that sounds good. How do you think representation in gaming, esports, and content creation has sort of evolved over the years? And anybody can take that. I know it's a loaded one.
I will start with that. Okay, so in terms of content creation, I started making content, especially in anime and gaming, 4 years ago. And I remember 4 years ago, it was like very separated in terms of the companies being like, we're an anime company, and so we're gonna hire creators who like anime. And now it's like lifestyle brands are starting to learn, and like mainstream like restaurants and stuff are like, okay, anime and gaming is cool. So now you see them bringing in all of these creators who usually wouldn't get these opportunities. And what I've noticed actually, and is kind of a good thing, is that especially with lifestyle brands, a lot of women are getting these opportunities because we're the ones who are creating the lifestyle content, primarily beauty, fashion, things like that. And so I think the representation has honestly got a lot better since I started. And the main discrimination I still face is from my peers in the space, like my male peers, my male content creators, not taking us as seriously and things like that.
Absolutely. And before we keep going on, I'd like to kind of take advantage of a comment I made earlier. The lovely Rain of Boston, our final panelist, Kit, if you want to give a quick introduction about yourself.
Sure. How about that?
Oh, you're
Thank
good.
you very
You're
much.
good.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kit Dunn. I'm a project manager for Raidiant. We're a broadcast production company, and we focus on creating broadcast, tournaments, content initiatives that uplift marginalized genders.
Thank you so much. So something I think is really important when it comes to gender bias is the difference between equality and equity. I think sometimes when we talk about this issue, especially in the gaming space, some folks get the two mixed up on what they are, and sometimes it's even an argument that they use, right? Like, hey, you're treating us unequally, right, than women, marginalized genders, or other intersectional folks as well. So for our panelists, what does equity mean to you? What's the difference? Do you mind to maybe share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I just kind of want to talk about like the main difference between equality and equity that I think people get mixed up. There's this metaphor of just like these different people like looking over a fence and they're all different heights. Equality is when we give each person, all these different heights, the same height box and say, we're helping you, like we're raising you up and you can go see over the fence. But everyone's different heights, so the person that's taller can already see over the fence and someone who's shorter still won't be able to see over the fence. When we talk about equity, we're talking about providing boxes that are different sizes for all the different heights of people so that everyone can see over the fence and have an equal playing field.
Yeah, I think that was a wonderful way. Anything else that anyone wants to add into that? No? Okay. So I'm curious, have any of you had a specific instance where you had to confront gender bias, whether it's, personally, or you may have seen this in your career? How did you navigate that, or how would you suggest navigating that to somebody who's seen that?
I guess I can take that. So as a fun, lore fact for me, when I first graduated college, since I am back in college, my first degree was in interactive multimedia, which is my college's way of saying video game design and development. I don't know why they just didn't go with video game design and development, but that's a side story. I was working at a Fortune 500 company, and I was leading the programming of our emails that went out to people who bought stuff. And I was working with a group of devs. And I fought tooth and nail with them and eventually went, hey, why are you not listening? This is what the project needs. What's going on? And they just look at me and go, women shouldn't be coding and you don't know what you're doing. And I, in that moment, one, felt very defeated. And two, was just like, what do you mean? Like, I have a degree, like I've proven myself, I've been working here for a while. And eventually just hit a point where it was my boss took over emailing them, even though I was telling them exactly what to do. I was writing the emails, it's just we emailed it from my boss's account and the work got done. And now, when I have confrontations of folks going like, well, you don't really belong here, or you only have followers because you're a woman, I will just kind of snap back at them and just be like, it's one, 2024, and two, you realize you are perpetuating a problem in this industry and you probably should be better about it, because that's the only way things are going to change, is if we are more accepting of folks. So maybe zip it.
Yeah, 100%. Anyone else have other sort of pointers of how to navigate that? I know it's, especially when there are power dynamics that come into play in a career, right, too. Sometimes you're afraid to maybe address that, but any other sort of pointers or, maybe even individual experiences you'd like to share?
I still say success is the best revenge. So, for example, there's a particular convention that every year comes around and asks me to be a guest, and is like, yeah, we have budget for your fee, and then I say the fee and they ghost me. Meanwhile, my male counterparts who say their fee, which is around the same or higher, all happen to get their fee just fine. And then I talk to my other fellow female creators who are invited to this convention, and they're also not paying their fee. But unlike me, they're just saying, oh yeah, sure, I'll still do it. So for me, it's like standing your ground a little bit and being like, no, this is not okay. Like, I'm not gonna just take that. And then on top of that, then through that next year, just making sure I'm being the best I can be, getting more opportunities, more reasons for me to be on their panels, their roster of guests. And then next time it comes around, I'm like, so what? Is it the qualifications? Because that can't be it. So yeah, I would say just, some people just have an inherent bias, and I don't want to work with those people, no matter how successful, no matter how clouded, quote unquote. And yeah, success is the best revenge.
I will kind of echo that. Like, I remember back when I was in college, a ton of people within collegiate esports were really trying to get in the industry. There was only so many internships out there, and I happened to land one at Epic Games as the summer after my sophomore year. And I remember people were telling me, they were like, oh, you only got that internship because you're a girl. And that did feel pretty bad. But one of my main motivation was okay, well, I'm just gonna keep my head down and just keep working. And then eventually I just kept getting more and more opportunities. It's well, can you really say at this point that I only got that because of a girl, because I'm a girl, or are you just being a hater? So sometimes it really does feel good to succeed when just to prove all the haters wrong.
Yep. I'll have to take that from Toasty. I think that was a great tagline, honestly. Oh, thank you. Vian, do you have something to add? I think I saw you might. Yeah?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of what everyone said is perfect. I think there's a lot to be said about, going for what you want. And, I think, I don't know, I've struggled in games to kind of be a person, right? I don't think I ever saw myself in games when I was younger. I didn't think a person like me, that looked like me, that has the opinions that I have, could make games. So when I was kind of going through my path, getting to where I am, I think I really worked hard to make sure there was always at least one person in my corner. Having a developer or someone from a bunch of different disciplines that can be that can vouch for me and say, Vian is usually right about these things. Like, let's listen to Vian. Let's, like, everyone stop talking over this person, and, like, let's maybe hold a little bit of space for this person that has stuff to say. I think it's really difficult when we talk about just, like, being a femme-presenting person. I have so many friends that are afraid to speak up about stuff, or they think that they're gonna get fired, and, like, they like make one mistake and they're like, it's over for me. And I'm like, there are so many incompetent cis men, that are out here that are doing worse and, like, are making more money than you. Like, it's fine. Do your best. You're gonna do great. And, like, I think everyone needs to remember that. I think everyone gets imposter syndrome, but, like, you just gotta remember that probably someone worse than you is making more money than you. And, like, you just gotta keep going. And, like, I don't know. I just think there's so many people that are contributing a lot of really diverse voices and a lot of experiences that are feeling kind of muffled by this fear of, like, I don't know, that they're not good enough. And I'm, like, yelling and screaming because I've seen it's just so much worse. There's so many other people that are doing much worse. And yeah.
Yep, 100%. And I think support systems can be really, really helpful in this space. And I think, luckily a lot of us have been able to meet through support systems, literally, like every single one of us. So I think when it comes down to having people in your corner, like Vian said, like that it can make the world of a difference, honestly. So, how are we bridging the gap? I know one thing that really comes to mind is, the game dev space. We have definitely made leaps and bounds in terms of, diverse characters, diverse staff, diverse devs, but that is also met with online toxicity, even targeted hate campaigns, and that is one that is happening currently right now to a lot of game devs. So I would like to take the time to kind of address that. And it's essential, I think, for us. So how can we create safer and more inclusive environments for those at most risk in our community? And Camila, if you want to take that first.
Yeah. So it's online spaces, of course, people feel more emboldened to say whatever they want to because, they're hidden behind typically a, like, no offense, anime icon and some, like, random username and then, like, a bajillion numbers afterwards every time. Not all the time. But we still need to make sure that we have, like, organizations that can support even, like, the smaller dev teams that just cannot, like, for whatever reason, hire someone to be there to help with the online spaces. Like, my biggest call out is going to be Take This and the resources they have, because they offer training for devs, they offer stuff for, like, streamers and everyone to, like, figure out how to navigate being harassed or having anything uncomfortable happen on an online space. There's also just a lot of good communities just to go online, and, like, if you're struggling to find people to play with in, like, League of Legends or Valorant or Apex or Overwatch, like, there's groups and nonprofits and other means where it's people who genuinely are going, I just want to see you have a good time, and will encourage you to keep playing instead of telling you suck, because I've had that happen a few times.
I think those conversations can seem a little awkward. I feel like that's kind of the theme of the day is, like, it might be a little awkward, but also it's really important to be able to probably also prepare yourself too, which is, it's a little sad. Like, why are we the ones most at risk have to also try to figure out how to protect ourselves? It's definitely a space that, it can sometimes feel like we are not protected or supported by our peers. So on that topic, I know, diversity isn't just about on camera, in game, it's also behind the scenes as well. It involves all the teams that create the games too at its core. So Vian, I'd like to have you share your experiences working in the game industry and, how do diverse teams contribute to a better game at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, a great example that comes off of the top of my brain is I was working on a game, and just, in general, there's color blindness kind of accessibility stuff, and I had a producer who had a certain kind of color blindness, and that already like kind of gave us a leg up of like someone who's constantly playing the game, who's looking at all the assets that we're creating and is like, hey, have you considered that like some people, like maybe I don't have that color blindness, but some people have this other thing. That's just like a really basic example. Like there's times where our artists don't reflect the characters that they're creating in game, and just having someone on the dev team that's like, hey, these people don't really look like this, like that's kind of a stereotype. It's like so much useful, and I think I really have benefited from working on development teams that don't really have this seniority or hierarchy of like, well, we're the game designers, so like we say the game design stuff. I've only flourished in places where the UI people, the art people, the animators, they are all contributing to the game design. They're all contributing to the way the game looks and how it plays, because we all have different experiences and different things that we like about games, and that only improves the player experience, trying to like really get an understanding of like what is fun. And I think if any one person is coming to a space and thinking that they know what's best, I think that's just a huge detriment to any sort of development or any sort of creation at all.
Yeah, and I think it goes without saying, sometimes we can feel empowered being able to look at our favorite game or look at even a show, right, and see ourselves, whatever that looks like for you. And I think there's a lot of intersectionality that also comes into play there, so making sure that you have intersectional conversations and intersectional teams too at the same time to be able to cover, like Vian said, you know, all folks at the same time. So Toasty, I know we made a little bit of a diss at anime. As someone so ingrained in, you know, the anime space as an actor, what has your experience been like? Have you ever had to deal with, you know, direct pushback like we often do in the content creator space?
Ooh, that's a good question. Have I ever had to deal with pushback directly? I would say I deal mainly with pushback from other actors because, you know, there's the whole thing of like, these content creators are after our jobs. And, you know, I get that as somebody who has seen, you know, content creators get opportunities that maybe, you know, they weren't qualified for. But for me, I'm like, I'm a trained actor, so hey, don't be mad at me. But I would say the only pushback is kind of just not understanding it quite yet. Like content creation is still kind of like a fake job in a lot of people's eyes. And I think that's changing slowly. You know, I feel like there's such like a big surfacing of new creators, and like there's a creator middle class now, and everybody is kind of trying to make money off of it now, which is great. I think everybody should. But yeah, definitely push back because, you know, I get invited to like movie premieres and things like that, and then other actors are like, why are you at the movie premieres? I want to be at the movie premieres. And I'm like, hey, I'm just here. I'm just saying yes to everything. Don't be mad at me. But yeah, definitely some pushback, and I hope that it changes. And I also do voice acting and stuff, so I think the anime voice actors are like, you're so cool, like you post your voice acting stuff online, and so it varies. I think people are just kind of snobby still when it comes to content creation, especially as a woman. And if you look at the history of content creation, it's just because it started as mommy bloggers and women, and they made it cringe because there's a bunch of women online, and it's misogyny at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Definitely. Yep. I see some snaps in the crowd. Yep, absolutely. And I think another critical resource we can all agree on is the impact of mentorship. And definitely investments in the education and training of folks. Through the work we do at 1000 Dreams Fund, we found that 70% of women specifically do not have a workplace mentor. And we were just chatting right before this panel of like, hey, do you have a mentor? I don't have a mentor. Like, how do we get a mentor? So I'd like to ask just anybody, please feel free to take this, especially Kit. I know that you're working, especially in this space, to help provide these sort of opportunities to folks. So how important do you think a mentor is to you? You know, have you had one, or have you even been one before?
Yeah, I think mentorships are vital to this space for multiple reasons. One, I know we touched a bit earlier on kind of knowing your worth in the industry, and I think that's really hard, especially as a woman in a space where you can feel a little bit like a minority. Having someone who can kind of be your mirror to talk to and work through things and remind you of your worth and help build you up so you can go more confidently into situations that are difficult. just having people on your team is so vital in this industry. I also think providing pathways and opening doors for people directly to job opportunities where they can have hands-on experience is vital, and that's something that we really hold dear at Raidiant. We've probably provided hundreds of job opportunities at this point at all different levels, creating content for us, working on our productions, working on tournaments. We currently are running a tournament admin mentorship program. We're also trying to pay people for their time, which I know is not always possible, and mentorship is valuable in any way you can get it. But we are really trying to provide paid opportunities to learn in all different levels of our productions. And a lot of those opportunities, sometimes women are actively passed over for job opportunities over and over again. They can't build up their resume to open other doors. So once they get those few things on their resume, hopefully that opens new avenues for them. We get them trained on programs like Valorant Barracks, which is a really complicated program they use in their productions. There's probably only a handful of people in the world that know that, and now we have marginalized gender folks who can say, hey, I know how to run that, and potentially work on Valorant broadcasts.
Absolutely, and more snaps in the crowd for that, for sure. So has anyone else had a mentor or been a mentor? Do you want to share kind of how that experience went?
I can share. I am currently a mentor with Queer Women of Esports, or QWE. This is like my first like cohort, I guess, of doing it with them, and just on the imposter syndrome thing, like I remember stressing to my friends when I applied to be a mentor. I was like, I don't know if I'm like cool enough or good enough for this. Like, oh, I don't know. Like, and like even getting my mentee, I was like, oh, like what if my mentee doesn't like me? And like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm good enough. It worked out, and I was paired with a mentee, and we've been getting along like really great. But I think like it's important. It means a lot to me to like show her like, number one, that there's like women and marginalized genders that are like working already, and that there is a path like forward, and that like she can see someone that like she feels represented by already in the workforce, and just like helping to like build that community up is like especially important to me. And also I don't want to speak on behalf of QWE, but like it definitely seems a huge part of their mission, and I'm like really glad to be a part of that. So I just totally lost my train of thought, but yeah. So that's something I do, and I hope that my mentee thinks it's meaningful. But I definitely like have a lot of fun with that. And then also like I've been a mentee like throughout college. Like I've had a number of different mentors, like both women and non who really inspired me and helped me kind of like get my career on my feet, and really gave me a lot of guidance, which like enabled me to have the career I have now, and even like be here talking in general. So
Absolutely. And thank you for being a mentor too. I think that's important, as well as thanking those out there who dedicate their time to be able to help, bridge the gap. Literally, that's what you're doing. So I'm sure your mentee thinks you're amazing.
I hope so.
Anybody else want to go ahead and Vian, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want to like agree with what you're saying. I think that like also to anyone in this room who has experience, I think if you have that imposter syndrome, I know I literally did 5 minutes before this panel. I was like, why am I here? I think there's something to be said about being a mentor and having your own experience, and just talking to someone and letting them know that you're a human being and you've, lived a life. And I think whatever your experience may be, it's definitely valuable. So that's to anyone in this room who feels like they have something to offer other people.
Absolutely. So for everyone here, what advice do you have to find those support networks, to find those mentors? There might be people watching or in the crowd now that are like, mentorship sounds amazing, but like, where do I even start in finding one?
Well, first off, there are a lot of programs, like I mentioned. Like if you just look up like esports mentorships, or like you just like, I don't know, go on like social media, like Twitter or something, for example, and just like look up like, various like programs that you might have heard of. Sometimes you'll be able to find them that way. Another thing you could do is like, you don't necessarily have to go through a program. Like a lot of the times you can just like reach out to someone and be like, hey, like I've seen some of what you do on like LinkedIn or on social media, and it's actually very similar to something I want to do. Like, would you be open to like chatting sometime? And I feel like most people would actually just like say yes. I mean, sometimes like they can be very busy and they might not have the capacity to like give you the attention that you deserve. So they might say no because of that. But I feel like most people are actually very open to it. Like, I know, not like necessarily like fully committing like a mentorship, but like anytime any student, like especially from like collegiate esports, like since that's a community that's like near and dear to my heart, if like they ever ask me like for advice or just to like look at their resume or anything like that, I pretty much always say yes. So I think like if you're not sure of any programs, you can always just reach out, and like the worst thing that they could do is just not respond or say no, and that is like 99.99% like not personal. It's probably just because they're too busy, or they like don't check their DMs, or they're like me where I like open my messages and then I read them and then I go, oh, I'll respond to this later, and then I like put my phone down and then it's gone. I don't remember, and then I'll see it like 6 months later and I go, oh no. So if you, but programs are definitely a little bit more structured. Like, we have like a whole curriculum with like QWE, and like they have a whole little like project they're doing. And you might not get that like same structure if you just reach out to somebody, but it also could just be a lot more like personal and like tailored to like what you need. So.
Anybody else? Yes, Kit, please.
Yeah, I'd love to cut in. Just to echo that, I always tell folks, if you're scared of reaching out, like, one, we've all been in your shoes. If you're someone trying to break into the industry, we're all there, one, scared, not knowing what direction to go in. But realistically, everyone loves talking about themselves, so never be afraid to reach out. People will love to schedule 30 minutes to talk about their experience. And like Rachel said, if they don't respond, it's nothing against you. On top of that, I personally have a list of resources I send to folks when they're looking for mentorship. 1000 Dreams Fund Kayla does insane work on creating mentorship opportunities for all different types of programs, as well as programs outside of gaming too. It's just an incredible organization. I've spoken a little about Raidiant. There's Queer Women of Esports. There's so many organizations that are working on these grassroots levels to try to bring more folks into the industry. So 100% reach out if you ever have any questions.
So I'm hearing shoot your shot, as they say, right? And to add on to that, I think another thing is LinkedIn and social media and things like that. I know somebody who came through our fellowship program at 1000 Dreams Fund said, "Hey, I really want to like shadow at VCT or one of their like local tournaments," and they're like, "Do you think I should do that?" And I was like, "Yes, of course you need to. And if you need me to be your cheerleader on the side, or you need me to, be your somebody, even like a contact or resume, right, review, like, please tell me." And they did that, and they got to shadow. So it's just really amazing. I see you in the crowd. Now I'm losing my train of thought. Anyways. So I know we talked a little bit about investing in education and training, but I want to go ahead and ask, Kit, do you have anything else you'd like to share about that, especially in esports? I think, sometimes it comes down to lack of knowledge, or maybe thinking like, okay, I see this really cool production of Valorant, but what even happens behind the scenes, right? What are you doing? I guess explain a little bit more about the Raidiant process. I know you went over it a little bit, but please tell us more.
Sure. So I will say, if you're looking for learning opportunities, just having a growth mindset, learning a new skill is a really humbling experience. The very first esports thing I applied to was just to be a moderator for a server, and they asked if I had production experience. And I said, well, I've streamed to my students when I was a teacher on Google Meet. So truly was just a noob at the very bottom starting level. So never be afraid to just ask for an opportunity. For us, we're usually looking for folks that have a little bit of experience that we can build on, but if you're really looking for experience, we'll find something for you that you can do. We've had folks with zero experience come in and we get them as a moderator, paid moderator on our channel. Folks with a little bit of production experience. We have our Raidiant Academy events, which are geared more as like a training grounds for up-and-coming talent. If you have a lot of experience, we might put you on VCT Game Changers, which is an official Riot broadcast. So we really do have all different tiers of learning opportunities. I wouldn't be afraid also if you see community organizations that just do even in-house streams or community streams, just ask if there's any way you can get involved. That's how I started. I just volunteered, and my first 2 broadcasts as a producer were just awful, but we got there, and it's a learning process.
Definitely, and I think also shout out to 1000 Dreams Fund. I took this role about 5 years ago as community manager, and it was very much just a part-time role for me. I had only been a streamer, I knew about content creation, but I didn't really know the first thing about project management or what goes into being able to run these sort of programs. So I quite literally would not have been here without taking that first role and showing my interest in growing and learning along that process. So never be afraid to maybe reach out to folks and say, hey, I want to learn. I want to do more. How can I do more? And I'm here now today. So shout out to them as well. Something else I think is really important is intersectionality for women of color, Black women, marginalized genders, and our trans peers. And so I'd like to take a moment to just kind of ask, folks on this panel, how can the industry better represent and include those diverse experiences and perspectives in game development, streaming, or what have you?
Okay, I can talk a little bit about this. I'm gonna keep it 100%. There are certain companies in gaming as a content creator who only collaborate and reach out to creators who are white or Asian, and that is messed up. And if you see a lot of these large streaming group organizations, the predominant members are white and Asian. I don't think I see any big group like an OTK or anybody like that who has a lot of Black members. Something like that is really important and needs to change, because right now we have our independent, creators, Berlizzi, RDC, all them, AMP, great, awesome. But what you don't see is OTK and the organizations like them who are getting a different level of support from brands, sponsors, things like that Black creators are not getting. And so that is something that I think at the highest level needs to change. And then in terms of, being a woman of color, just as a content creator especially, it's interesting because, on one side of the coin, you do get a little bit of, oh, Black History Month, let's give you some cool opportunities. Oh my gosh, 1 month. And then, there's certain things like that. But for me, I'm okay, that's great work, you guys, but I'm gonna charge you extra if I'm the only Black person on this campaign. Because if I'm your diversity hire, you're gonna pay me more. And I'm also gonna recommend a couple other creators you should work with. So things like that, where it's just calling it out where you see it. We gotta be more honest. Gaming is it's still very biased, and I'm sorry. There's a clear cut when it comes to who's represented and who's not. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think also at the same time, when it comes to other marginalized genders, yes, women are impacted. Yes, it's important work that many organizations are doing, but it also comes down to fostering those spaces as well for other marginalized genders. Non-binary folk are not a monolith, right? They don't need to be lumped in necessarily into women's causes or women's spaces. Not that they should be excluded either, but I think fostering at its core those spaces for folks and being able to give them resources like Toasty said, right? Not just reaching out one time a year. Or if you're reaching out to me then, you need to be reaching out to me later as well. Making those spaces being known. Anybody else have anything to say on that?
Yeah, I think in terms of development, Toasty, you said everything brilliantly. I think what you're kind of saying about fostering community, I've seen in hiring practices with all cis people, they still are like, this is my pronouns. And I really appreciate that. I think I'm so used to being the only person in the room that's like, this is how you pronounce my name. It's Vian, and also my pronouns are they, them. And they're like, what? And I said, my pronouns are they, them. And they're like, how do you say your name? And I'm like, never mind. Happens all the time. But it's a way to kind of make sure that we're acknowledging in the room that people use pronouns that are maybe not like assumed. And that's kind of a really little like one step kind of way. I think a lot of what you're talking about is like a lot of systemic change. I think having a lot more diverse people in the hiring process changes who we're hiring, right? Like I feel like we're trying to combat this bias, but at the end of the day, like if you're a white man and you're getting a lot of applications from other white men or like people with similar skill levels, and you talk to that white guy and you're like, oh, we went to that same school and like we kind of had the same upbringing, we played the same games, like who are you gonna hire, right? Like I don't have that same experience. I like didn't really have access to a ton of games as a kid, but I played what I could with my brother. We went to GameStop, like that was the jam. But yeah, I think like that, it feels like a bigger, broader systemic issue, but there are little tiny like things that we can do, just like being more aware of the fact that like if your hiring room is fully white men, kind of maybe having another sounding board or someone that we're maybe paying a little extra to make sure we're considering diverse kind of thinking and voices.
Yep, and I think it comes back to the conversation we had earlier. Equity, not equality, right? When it comes to the fence, folks need different boxes to be able to see over the fence, right? So being able to support them where they need it most is only going to be, at the end of the day, we all benefit from that. So I think today I'd like to kind of end this discussion with something that I know is probably dear to all of our hearts. Like I said earlier, we all met through the communities that we're part of that support us or our support systems as well. So I'd like to kind of, ask you, like, what has your experience been like building inclusive communities, advocating, or, what sort of groups have you been a part of that have really made a difference on you? Yeah.
I'm probably going to mess it up, and I'm going to do my best here. Something I learned when trying to build a online community for my streaming and everything and trying to be as inclusive as possible is there are moments where you have to sit there and go, I'm sorry, but you can't sit at this table because you just flat out do not respect everyone else. And having that boundary of, we are inclusive, but if you're going to actively hurt or actively like say, I don't believe in like the rights of certain people, then it's like, bye-bye. Goodbye. I do not need this energy. You do not need to be here. We clearly have two very different understandings of what is being inclusive.
Anyone else? Yeah.
I would say for me, building an inclusive community is really doing it myself and by scratch, because a lot of the inclusive communities I've been a part of are great, but I don't know, usually, I don't know why this is, but a lot of times they're run by like white men or, and I'm like, why am I a part of this program that's run by a white man? So I've started creating my own spaces. So in New York, I have a monthly event called Weeb Mingle, and it's a bunch of weebs, and we get together once a month. I will say it is predominantly Black because of my audience, but anybody can come. We have autistic members, we have, everybody you could name, and then we also have like talent shows, and we'll have like drag performers and burlesque performers, and something that obviously I know a lot of people maybe know about, but there's a lot of homophobia in the Black community, and as somebody who's in the theater community, like I'm not going to stand with that. So a large part of my events is also making sure that we have like an inclusive group of people, and if we have drag performers, making sure people are not acting a certain type of way, like I'm gonna kick you out of here, okay? And so yeah, building those communities and making sure those communities are by us, for us, period.
100%. And I think it's so true what you said. Like sometimes you have to make your own seat at the table, which is, an unfortunate truth in this space. But obviously, if you're not going to do it, who else is going to do it, right? Exactly. Anybody else want to share more about like the communities you take part in or you would recommend even? Yep.
Yeah, I mean, when I came to Boston, there really wasn't a huge queer gaming dev scene. So I actually started a group called Queer Game Dev Boston. Our little logo is like the Duncan logo. I don't know. If no one's from Boston, that's fine. It's okay. But even in that space that I created with my friend, I still felt like I was maybe like 1 out of 3 people of color. And like, so sometimes it does feel a little rough to kind of start these spaces on your own. But what helped a lot was like reaching out to resources that existed. So there's like the Indie Game Dev Boston scene, and they were super helpful and like really great with helping us get access to resources and getting our message out there. But yeah, I think it's just hard out here. But I don't know. I've lived my whole life not really feeling like I fit in a space. So the idea, like making my own space feels very natural. But if it doesn't to you, then I think like a lot of it just kind of comes with looking at what's already out there and seeing how you can get it to fit with what you're trying to do.
Yep. And thank you all for all the work that you do too as well. I think that ends the panel for today. However, we'd like to welcome any, open Q&A from the audience for the last, roughly 15 minutes. Thank you for being here, and thank you all for sharing your experiences as well. So please feel free. We have 2 mics here if you'd like to ask any questions. I know I'll be staying around too, sticking around to chat as well. Yeah, please, sir. Yeah.
Howdy.
Hi.
So I feel like it's human nature that you don't really want to stand on the line of fire of things, but a lot of the times we need support from our trusted coworkers and allies to be like a united front and stand up and say, hey, this behavior is like not going to work here. I would love your thoughts and advice on kind of how to have those difficult conversations of, you're not really serving us well enough. Please stand with me to show that what this other coworker or whoever is doing is not acceptable.
Go ahead, Vian.
Yeah, I think something that I see a lot is just generally coming from a place of knowing that everyone's well-meaning, even the person that might have hurt you. I think going to people that are your allies and being like, if you don't understand why this person hurt me, let's like have a conversation about like kind of empathizing with how I feel and like why that was so difficult to hear in this group setting or whatever. I think it generally just is a tough thing, in the workplace. And I think it really helps to lean on your allies that maybe have more power in a situation than you do. And just making sure that they're aware of like the way that like this empathy kind of that you're being hurt and how that hurts. Even if they can't relate, I think them knowing that it exists helps. I can't solve this problem.
Yeah, there's no perfect answer, right? And like every situation's a little bit different, but I think also kind of going back to, again, like you said, having sort of that workplace buddy support system, or even like creating your own group, like depending on the size of your company, right? Like if we're talking large scale, like you can make those internal groups. You can spearhead that internal group and be able to have that support system, even internationally or nationally, right? So yeah, I don't think there's a perfect answer, but and thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Yes. Yep, next question.
Hi. Sometimes discrimination in the workplace isn't as obvious as someone literally saying to your face something like women shouldn't be coding. Sometimes it's a lot more subtle, like women in a meeting presenting ideas, and then they get kind of passively passed over. So how can I, as an ally, build an awareness of where that might be happening, and so that I can address it in a way like by talking to people that would be affected, or the people that are causing it.
Yeah, and thank you for that question. I'd like to bring something up that I actually talked with somebody yesterday about. They had some game dev experience, and they said that they often were asked questions about X, Y, or Z thing when it comes to developing the game. And they soon realized they were not being asked because they wanted to hear her opinion. They wanted to ask to test how much she knew. And I think sometimes being cognizant of those voices in that room, even as specific as that, like, are we continuously asking in that way? And having those open conversations as well, but also making it known, like, hey, I am an ally and I'm here to support you. The previous question, right? Like, how can I stand in the line of fire? Like, knowing that someone like yourself might be willing to back them up when they're calling that out. Please, anybody else, feel free.
I just want to say, like, in the whole, like, making sure that you're, like, like, women, like, marginalized genders or underrepresented folks just in general are being heard. Like, a previous team lead of mine, so in my role, like, imposter syndrome is, like, such a thing, and I feel like it also very much can affect, like, women especially, and also, like, other marginalized genders. Like, I would usually be pretty quiet on meetings because, like, people are older than me, or, like, what if my idea is stupid, or, like, what if I'm stupid? So I would be pretty quiet, but, like, my team lead would always, like, ask my opinion, like, oh, like, Rachel, what do you think about this? And then I'd be a little nervous to share, but, like, I would share. And then he was always, like, so reassuring of, like, that was a great idea. Or even if, like, he didn't necessarily agree, like, oh, I really liked this point, but, like, what about, this and that? And it was, like, it really helped to create, like, such a safe space that I knew that, like, I could speak up in meetings and that people had my back, so I could, like, have that comfort to, like, voice my opinion and be, like, present.
Definitely. Sorry, I struggled pressing the microphone there. Thank you for your question.
Thanks for your answers.
Absolutely.
Hello, friends.
Hi.
So my question kind of comes from the spectrum you guys kind of made of calling out all the problems as you see them, face value, and keeping your head down and working just to get better as the spectrum of kind of addressing problems with inclusivity and equity. So how do you find that happy balance where you want to be this martyr, this advocate for inclusivity and equity without sacrificing or penalizing your own career kind of altruism style, especially for, like, content creators and talent in the space where companies might be less inclined to work with you just for sticking up for yourself or for others in that space? I know that's a core problem in itself, but, like, how do you balance that?
Honestly, that's a good question. The number one thing for me is just having a manager. And honestly, my manager is a white woman. So they let her say certain things that I can't say to them. Like, honestly, like, having that middleman is really important for that because, it wasn't me, ooh, like, it's not me, it's my manager. Like, we play good cop, bad cop dynamic, and it works very well. So a bit of advice that I actually did very early on, I wouldn't recommend this once you get to a certain stage, is I actually would have a separate email that I pretended was a manager, and then I would loop them in, and then I would respond as if I was someone else. And sometimes you got to do stuff like that. And then if they ask you to hop on a call, you say, oh, they're out of town, they're out of office, like, they can't be there. Just having that middleman kind of gets rid of that.
I'm going to also just add, like, mental spoons. Like, please be mindful of your like, mental health and everything, because it's rough out there. And, like, some days it feels like every single tweet I see is just very depressing and frustrating and gives me, like, I get really fired up. But do I have the mental space to, like, say anything about it? Do I have the, like, spoons and energy for all these different things? And it sucks because there are a lot of things that need to be discussed and broken down and systems that are in place that shouldn't be there still. But it's going to take time and a lot of folks, because not one single human being can be the person that makes all of the change in the world. We have to do it together.
And I think to go along with that, this is kind of going back to the mentorship kind of conversation. A lot of that is free labor. A lot of that is emotional labor that people are volunteering to do. And when we're talking about that last question about how allies can assist other people, like my first thought is like talking to that person who is maybe facing trouble in meetings or whatever. But that's a lot of emotional labor that we're relying on that person who's already marginalized and like work that we're asking them to do that again is free. So it's a tricky situation. Again, no answers for you, just throwing out more problems.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I just want to start by saying, especially as what you said about hate campaigns that have been going on right now, it's like so aspiring to me to see like you're still willing to talk about this topic in such a large audience, and I just want to say thank you for that. My question is kind of, I want to get into esports and like all the behind the scenes stuff, but unfortunately like a lot of the women that are in that and other marginalized genders that are in that community are in the like more invisible roles of like management, production, as you said. And I was just looking to see how you would recommend finding connections and finding those support groups and how to create those like kind of cohorts of other people to talk to that aren't necessarily cis men.
Yeah. I feel like Kit, you might be a good.
I want to jump on it.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, I mean, please DM us, all of us, everyone up here. I know we would all love to help you out. And personally, when someone DMs me and tells me what they want to do, I have friends in the industry that I can point them to. If they want to be a producer, I have a friend who does that. If they want to be a social media manager, I send them that way. So definitely please reach out to people directly on Twitter, LinkedIn, anything like that. Joining communities like Raidiant, 1,000 Dreams Fund, really wonderful opportunities to get you started there. And Kayla kind of touched on this earlier too. If you're not getting the opportunity for yourself, the door isn't there, feel free to build one. I've actually known folks who have built entire tournament series for themselves, which is a lot of work, but if you get some friends together and do it and hopefully have fun with it, can turn it into something and sort of serve as a portfolio for yourself. Feel free to advocate for yourself too. I know those invisible roles, they can be hard to get yourself out there for when you're behind the scenes, but feel free to post about the work that you're doing. Make it visible in your own way. It can be tough. I hate posting about the work I'm doing, but it's paid off for me and kind of serves as a portfolio. So yeah, be proud of yourself for anything that you are doing and show it off.
I have to second that. I have major imposter syndrome. I feel like anytime that I'm like putting a tweet out there or a post, I'm like, hey, I did this cool thing. I'm like, wait, did I just make that up in my head? Should I post this? Like, are people going to think I'm arrogant for doing it even? So I think, it's so true. But also, yes, please join those communities. Raidiant, like, even if you join the Discord and you're like, hey, I want to get more involved, like, what can I do? I can almost guarantee you they're going to try to find a spot for you. And even with 1,000 Dreams Fund, we wanted to get more portfolio building opportunities for our beneficiaries, and so we hosted 2 Apex Legends tournaments. I've never hosted an Apex Legends tournament. I didn't know what I was doing, and I said, hey, like, who wants to learn with me? And we did, and we brought in some folks who did maybe know what they were, getting at, and they were able to share their knowledge as well with those who were trying to get their foot in the door at the same time. So definitely, let people know. I think that's number one. Like, don't be afraid to tell them, this is my dream. Can you help me get there? And they're going to want to help you for sure.
Thank you.
Note on that too. I see so many production managers saying there's no women producers, there's no women graphics operators, and I feel like it's partially because we're not sharing our work and not posting about it. So please be proud and show us that we're all there, and we're ready to take jobs.
Yes. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes. Final question of the day.
And it just so happens to be me. Lit. So technically this is towards Toasty. Good for you.
I felt it. I already turned on my mic on.
Perfect. We're on the right page. So I'm always in New York, as you may or may not know, and you guys have the greatest party scenes, especially for anime and gamers. Now, I kind of want to take that from Philly, because I'm not going to lie to you, I'm kind of tired of traveling to New York for that. But I want to start a similar scene like how you have for all types of everyone and make it inclusive. How do I go about that?
Ooh, okay, that's a good one. First of all, When I started throwing parties, like I didn't know what I was doing. Like I joined a local creator program at like the PC Cafe downtown. They're like, hey, join our program. You can like host at our venue for free. And I was like, cool. I don't know anything about throwing events. So first thing I did was reached out to a community leader in my community who threw events, and I partnered with them. So I partner with If the Shoe Fits. They're a rap group. They're my lawyers in that group, like bunch of smart guys. And we throw these monthly events. Other thing I would do, promote other events you see in Philadelphia, get your name out there that way, because just promoting other people's stuff, like it doesn't pay you anything, but it pays you, you know? Like you get that network, people appreciate it, they trust you. And yeah, I would just reach out to the spots you usually go to. If you know a PC cafe, if you know like a bar, I'm sure you do. Like just reach out to the person who owns it, DM them or email them, whatever that's on their website, hit the bartender up, be like, hey, how can I host an event here? You know, like it's all just like grassroots, like talking to people and being vibes, like bring the vibes. And you bring the vibes, so I already know it's gonna be popping.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.